Welcome on back. It's SportsMemo Today time, and I hope you missed us as much as we missed you. We had a great Thanksgiving, a profitable Thanksgiving, especially if you've been riding with our handicappers over at sportsmemo.com. We're back for another Tuesday edition, which you know means $2 Tuesday, but we do it a little bit different than our friends across the way at Wager Talk. We got your $5 package for you, and you get three five-star plays from my guy Rob Vincelletti, and two of the gentlemen who will be on the show today. We got Jesse Schule with a 5-star NFL play that you can grab right now for $2. You got JM Sports with a 5-star college basketball play that goes tonight. The dude's on an 88% run. Might want to go over and grab that. Why spend $4 to get both of the guys who are joining me on the show today? Because you can spend $5 and get all three of those plays. You can also grab Hakeem Profit, his first 5% of the NBA season. That's with our friends over at Wager Talk. So what we got on the show today, I alluded to it. I got Jeff Michaels coming up out of the gate. He's going to talk some college basketball, some college football, and then we got Jesse Schule, the Iceman, making his return. He's got a little World Cup soccer play for you and an NFL total play as well. Number one in NFL at Sports Memo this season is our guy, Jesse Schule. So let's get into it. You might know him as JM Sports. I know him as my brother, Jeff. Jeff Michaels joining the show here. Jeff, man, you have been following in your pops Ralph's footsteps with a lot of TNA you've been dropping recently on Twitter. Let people know where they can find that, because you are absolutely killing it, man. Congrats on getting over that 1K.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah, I got another one for you later when we're talking, but guys, JM Sports CLE over on Twitter. Been doing a lot with first half, first quarter NBA stuff. But I started young learning the TNA. I probably knew what TNA was before I knew what lines and totals were. So it's just been boring looking at those numbers, and it's followed through to now. So.
Well, and it's worked out nicely for you and for your clients as well. Let's talk some college basketball and some of that TNA. I know this is a major matchup. All eyes are going to be locked in on Furman App State going at 6:30 tonight, man. I know everybody's pumped up for this one, but we don't care about what's garnering national attention. We care where we can make some money, and you think you just might have found an edge in this Furman App State game. How are you betting it?
Yeah, absolutely. This one was actually close to making it. This potentially would have been a premium play today, despite $2 Tuesday. So I decided to bring it to you guys here today. There's a couple big advantages I think Furman has in this one. A quiet team, you don't really know them. You don't really hear about them unless you're a diehard college basketball fan, obviously. But they have one of the most explosive and one of the most efficient offenses in the country. I mean, there's 363 teams in Division I ball. They're 25th in Ken Palm's offensive efficiency rankings, and they're shooting the 13th best effective field goal percentage as a team this year. They're 16th in the nation in 2-point percentage, but there's only 16 teams in the nation that are scoring a higher percentage of their points from behind the arc. So not only are they one of the best teams inside the arc, they're also obviously getting it done from beyond the 3-point line, shooting over 38% as a team. That's 43rd in the nation, and they're shooting over 41% from beyond the arc, and they're going against an Appalachian State defense that ranks in the bottom 20% in 3-point shooting percentage. Furman's defense has struggled a little bit. They've allowed an effective field goal percentage of 58%, but Appalachian State's the worst offense by a pretty noticeable margin that they've seen this season, whereas the opposite's true for Appalachian State. I mean, this Furman offense is the best offense by a long shot that they've seen, and one of the best defenses despite those numbers that I just gave you. But that Furman defense held Penn State to 73 points, kept that game close, and they blew out Belmont by 15 and South Carolina by 19. You think home field, home court, what you want to call it, advantage. Appalachian State 1-3 against the spread this year at home. Not much of a home court advantage there. They are scoring a little bit better, but they're not covering their games. And one of the biggest edges that Furman has is on the rebounding. They're grabbing almost 81% of the boards from the defensive side. That's eighth in the nation. And Appalachian State's 310th on the other side of the ball. I like Furman's fast-paced offense, especially when you pair it with a team like this that can shoot those three-pointers, because you're using under 17%, under 17 seconds in the shot clock, and you're shooting at that percentage from beyond the arc. That's a combination for a lot of points. So I like Furman tonight. You're 7-point favorites now, but it opened at 7.5, so it is coming down.
So getting a little bit extra value, that hook, and maybe not losing by that if they do pull off that 7-point win. But let's get it by a little more than that. So wherever you get it on the number, you get it home with the Paladins. I bet you didn't know that I knew Furman's mascot. It never ceases to amaze people. But all joking aside, we kind of said tongue in cheek, that's a big game. You do have a real big game to talk about here, and it's USC taking on Utah. That's this Friday. All eyes going to be on that at 8 o'clock Eastern. The question is, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't these teams play earlier in the year? And we basically saw this same line, and that was when it wasn't at a neutral site. So how are you betting this one? It's looking like around 3 USC, the 3-point favorite over Utah. Do they get the dub, and do they lock in a playoff appearance here? What are you thinking here, Jeff?
It's funny. We really don't talk in depth a whole lot before we go on the air about, what exactly is going to be said leading into it. You couldn't have segued me much better into this TNA that I got for you.
It's almost like it's my job. It's almost like it's my job.
Right. Right. How about only 14 times since 1997 that a team is playing an opponent for the second time in the season and secured their only loss of the year in the first meeting? 9-4-1 ATS in those 14 games. They're 5-1-1 in the last 7. So they did play. USC lost their only game, and it was nearly the same line, but it was flip-flopped in that one for you, Dan. Utah was actually the favorite. That was the only game of the season that USC was a dog. Utah was only a dog once this year, too. They lost that game against Oregon. So both these two teams are 0-2 as a dog. And like you said, very similar line, but it is going to be on the other side. So that could change things up. Since that game, you do have a USC team, that is playing a little bit differently. You got Caleb Williams, who's not only playing better, but hurts me to say, obviously, as an Ohio State fan, but he's got even more on the line now, seeing as Stroud may be out of, or more than likely is out of the running for that Heisman after that lovely game that we saw last weekend as an Ohio State fan. But you got Caleb Williams, who now may not only be fighting for a playoff spot as well as a Pac-12 title, but he could be the front runner now for the Heisman. He showed up once against this Utah team. He's the only quarterback this season to surpass 300 yards passing against this Utah defense. Actually, USC is the only team to secure 300 passing yards in a game against Utah this season. Williams threw for 381 yards, so he almost hit 400, and he threw for 5 touchdowns without an interception. USC's won 5 straight games since that. And you combine Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, and Jordan Addison, and apparently we got some sort of special offense out west there, because they're third in the nation, putting up 42.5 points per game. But since that loss against Utah, so the last 5 games, they're averaging 45.5 points. And in the last 3 weeks, they've forced 8 turnovers, and they're putting up 47 points per game, which does include a game against Colorado, who's obviously struggling in the Pac-12. But the other 2 teams were top 25 teams. They weren't playing nobodies. They were playing UCLA, and then last week we saw that game against Notre Dame. So they got 47 points a game and 8 turnovers against Colorado, UCLA, and Notre Dame coming into this one. And both these teams actually just ended the year 5-4 against the spread in conference play. But this line is pretty short. USC's 2-1 against the spread in their last 3 games against the conference at home. And Utah on the season has only covered 2 of their 6 road games. So I do think turnovers are going to play a big part in this one. And, I did skip over because we were talking about that revenge aspect. The loss this year was big, obviously, seeing as it was USC's only loss of the year. But not only is this a revenge spot, it's a double revenge spot. Utah took the meeting last year, too. So USC hasn't beaten this Utah team since 2020, and now Caleb Williams may have a Pac-12 title, a playoff contention spot, and a Heisman on the line for this game. And I think he shows up under the pressure. So give me the Trojans minus the points.
Laying it with the Trojans. He's Jeff Michaels, a.k.a. JM Sports. You can get his 2%, his $2 Tuesday play right now over at his page. You see it there, sm.buzz/JMS. I know you're pumped up for that 5-star. You have anything else loaded for this weekend? When people head over to your page, what are they going to find?
I got lots of eyes on football action this weekend, no question. Title weekend, last weekend before we go into the bowl, and a little more focus on college basketball. I got my eye on some big plays for tomorrow too, actually. So we may be following this up with a lot in store here coming in college basketball. So obviously those lines don't come out quite as early as those football ones, but keep an eye out because we're definitely paying some special attention to college basketball this season.
Well, and as Jeff mentioned, 88% run college basketball, and when there's all this stuff going on for the odds makers, sometimes you can find a little bit soft lines there with 300 some games on the slate, day in and day out. So that's Jeff Michaels. Grab his stuff over sm.buzz/JMS, and from JM we go to JS. Very excited to welcome back the Iceman, looking good as always, sometimes also known as Mr. Perfect. Jesse Schule joining us here on Sports Memo Today. Jesse, how's it been going, man? #1 in NFL through 12 weeks. You got to be feeling pretty good about that, brother.
I am. It's been a pretty good year, having a great year with football. And of course, we got the World Cup going on now, and I love the soccer as well, and been pretty successful with that too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'm one of the Americans that gets glued to my TV come around World Cup time, and not just for the U.S. I'm one of those guys who puts the coffee on, get up at 5 a.m. here on the East Coast to get up and watch some of that soccer. So let's start with that and look at this Serbia-Switzerland game. This is a Group G match. It's going on Friday. Pretty important for how that group's final seeding and who's going to be those top 2 teams kind of shakes out, or I guess that second team, better the way to say it. But how are you going to be betting on this one? It looks like Serbia a slight favorite against Switzerland. You think that sounds about right, or are you looking towards the dog?
Yeah, I like Switzerland in this spot, and I like them on the 2-way money line. Draw no bet. You definitely don't want to be taking that 3-way money line and lose if it's a draw. Switzerland has the luxury of playing for a draw here. They only need a draw to qualify for the next round. Serbia needs a win. They're a very good defensive club. They just played Brazil, and they managed to hold Brazil scoreless until the 83rd minute. And Casemiro scored after 83 minutes. They lost that game 1-0. That still puts them in an excellent position here. And the luxury of being able to play for a draw or not having to play for a win means they can sit back, they can put the pressure on Serbia and play solid defense and then look to counter as Serbia has to press. And anytime you have to press and push, you leave yourself vulnerable. I think Serbia is the more talented squad here, and I like them to get the job done. So I'm going to take Switzerland.
So you're still getting the plus money take back and you're helping yourselves out. So again, you can search for that. Typically, basically where you're going to be going for your plays at the top where it says, your team, the draw, the other team. Don't place your bet there because if there is a draw, you're going to lose your wager. The way that Jesse's protecting you here, plus 110 Switzerland and the draw no bet, or it might be under 2-way lines. that's the way to attack it. I've learned a little bit about soccer betting over these last few days. Then you start getting into the Asian handicaps, the goal and a quarter. My head starts spinning, Jesse. So let's just simplify it. Two-way line, draw no bet, Switzerland money line, according to my guy, the Iceman. So from football to football, let's talk some NFL. Man, the Mike White effect. It's happening again for those New York Football Jets. They get a huge win, and now they face off against a Vikings team that finally had a quarterback who can't seemingly play outside of 1 o'clock, get a win outside of that 1 o'clock window. In fact, it was a primetime game, one of Kirk Cousins' absolute afflictions. They get it done on Thanksgiving against a pretty good defense in the Patriots. So their offense showed, even when they're maybe a little bit overmatched, they can still put up points. What do you think? The Mike White effect continues? Jets stay putting up points? Vikings stay hot? Or do these teams cool off? How are you betting this one?
Just like Jeff said, your segue, it kind of leads me to believe that you can see my notes through the computer somehow. Yeah, pretty
If only
much
I would be
everything you said
cashing
is what
like
I've.
I would be cashing NFL tickets like crazy, like you. That I wish I could see your notes.
I mean, everything you said is what I've got written down here. I did have the Vikings on Thanksgiving, and I was very happy to see my man Kirk Cousins, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, finally winning a primetime game. I don't really buy into that whole Kirk Cousins can't win at primetime. I think if you're going to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, there's no way that you can't perform under pressure in a primetime game. And I'm glad that he finally did that. Now he's got a home game against, like you said, the Jets with Mike White, which are a totally different team than the Jets with Zach Wilson. Now, I had a lot of success in the NFL preseason this year. I believe I was 8-2 overall with my preseason bets. And I did bet on the Jets, I think, in every game they played. And I think they ran the table this preseason. And Mike White was lighting it up in the preseason as well. And actually, Mike White's pretty much lit it up as in all of his starts. He started 4 games last year. The total went over in all 4 of those games. Didn't just go over. It went over 60 in all 4 of those games. He threw for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions last week. And the over is 8-2 in the Vikings' last 10 home games. Now, some people might look at the Jets and say, well, they got the number 4 ranked defense. But I will point out this is going to be the Jets' first game indoors. And with 2 quarterbacks that can sling it around the yard, the total appears to be a little low for me, 45.5. I expect both teams to score 20-plus points. I think it's going to take, 25, 27 points to win it. So, I like the over here.
All right, so Jesse, we talked about that $2 Tuesday play you have up, the 5-star that you're pumped up about. You have anything loaded already for football action? Because again, if there's anyone at Sports Memo you want to be riding with, especially on the NFL gridiron, it's the guy sitting right next to me, Jesse Schule. Anything loaded or anything that you're eyeing, you're excited about that people will find when they go grab that $2 Tuesday play?
You've seen my yellow outfit, right?
I look forward to the yellow
perfect.
outfit. Whenever I see your card, and then I just pray, man, I hope he goes 100% just so I can see him strutting that stuff, brother.
Well, 5% NFL plays are 100% this year, 8-0. And I've got 2 of them this week, a side and a total, already posted. And we're really hoping to bump that up to 10-0 by the end of the week.
Now, I will warn you, sometimes you can't unsee when the Mr. Perfect outfit comes out, but it's worth it because you know you're cashing. So, Jesse, always a pleasure, man. Best of luck this weekend. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, Dan.
That's my guy, Jesse Schule. Huge thanks to him. Huge thanks to Jeff Michaels. Again, you can get his 5% play. You can get Jeff's 5% play, and you can get Rob Vinceletti's, a CFB 5%er, a NFL one, and a CBB, all for just $5. That's our gift to you here at Sports Memo. So for Jeff, for Jesse, I'm Dan Alexander, and we will be back Thursday right here on Sports Memo Today.